All right, so green power. One of those things, right? We hear it everywhere. But I got to admit, sometimes I wonder if we all really know what it means.
I think you've hit on something there. I mean, green, it's such a buzzword these days. So getting a solid understanding, it's pretty key.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to, really take a look at the EPA's page on green power. They seem like a pretty good resource, to cut through the noise and actually give us the facts. And beyond just like the definition, I'm curious about how green power fits into this whole like bigger world of renewable energy and what it actually means, for the planet.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. And the EPA, well, they start by putting green power like under the umbrella of renewable energy, but they're quick to point out that it's not just where the energy comes from. It's also about going above and beyond when it comes to environmental standards.
So it's like renewable energy, but like with honors.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting is that choosing green power, it's voluntary. It's about actively seeking out and supporting electricity that comes from the sources that have the lowest environmental impact.
So it's not just what's like available. It's like making a conscious choice.
Right. And here in the U.S., the EPA has a very specific list for what actually counts as green power. We're talking solar, wind, geothermal, biogas, eligible biomass, and small hydroelectric projects, but only if they meet these low impact standards. So it's definitely not just any renewable source that can make the cut.
Makes sense. And the EPA, well, they really highlight how much this focus on zero emission sources and cutting down carbon footprints, it's a major reason why people are drawn to green power. But, I think a lot of us use the terms green power and renewable energy like they're the same. Are they really that different?
Yeah, it's a really common misconception. And that's kind of where things get, where they get interesting. Renewable energy is the broader category. It includes all those green power sources we just talked about, plus some others that, naturally replenish. Think about things like large hydroelectric dams. They harness renewable water power. But
yeah, I have the feeling there's a but coming.
There is. While renewable, these large hydroelectric projects, they can sometimes have some pretty major environmental drawbacks. I mean, they can really mess with fish migration patterns, and then flooding land for reservoirs. Well, that can destroy habitats.
So even though it is technically renewable, it might not be like the best choice environmentally speaking. That really makes it clear why it's so important to really understand what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. And the EPA actually has this visual on their website that really helps to kind of lay it all out. It's like a spectrum. On one end, you've got your typical power sources, mainly fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, that kind of thing. And then there's nuclear power. And then moving along, we get into like the area of renewable energy, and sitting at the very top, representing the most environmentally beneficial options. Well, that's where you find green power.
Oh, that spectrum image is really helpful. I mean, even though our listeners can't actually see it, I think you did a really good job of describing it.
I think it really gets across the idea that it's not just about, being renewable. It's about doing everything you can to really minimize the environmental impact at every stage.
Okay, so now we've, kind of broken down the definitions and seen where green power fits in. Let's get to the why. Why should any of this matter to the person listening right now?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? We're all, we're becoming much more aware of how our energy choices impact the planet, and really understanding these differences. It's crucial. I mean, we can't just ignore the environmental costs that comes with conventional power sources, the damage from fossil fuel extraction and greenhouse gas emissions, not to mention the challenges of dealing with, nuclear waste.
Right. There's no hiding from it. So as individuals, what can we actually do with this information? I mean, it's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it all.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a big topic, but that doesn't mean that what we do as individuals doesn't matter. Even the small choices can contribute to a bigger shift.
That's good to hear. So where do we even begin? Is it as simple as just, flipping a switch?
It can be. I mean, a lot of electricity providers now offer, green power options. So customers can choose plans that, that source a higher percentage of their electricity from renewables. It's becoming a lot more common, actually.
So it's kind of like choosing organic at the grocery store. You're supporting a more sustainable option, even if it, sometimes costs a little bit more.
That's a great analogy. And just like with organic food, a lot of people are happy to pay a bit more for green power because they know they're investing in a cleaner energy future.
It's about putting your money where your values are, which I think is really important to a lot of people these days. But what if your utility company doesn't offer like those green power plans? Are there other ways to get involved? I've heard about these things called RECs, renewable energy certificates. They sound cool, but I'll admit I'm not really sure how they work.
Oh, RECs are great. They're a fantastic way to support renewable energy, even if your provider doesn't, offer green power directly. Think of them like they're kind of like tokens representing the environmental benefits of renewable energy generation. So when you buy a REC, you're essentially supporting the development of renewable energy projects somewhere on the grid.
So even if the electrons powering my house aren't coming directly from, say, a wind farm, I can still support the growth of wind energy through RECs.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that there are different types of RECs. There are bundled RECs. Those are sold, together with the electricity, so you're directly buying renewable energy. But then there are also unbundled RECs, and those are sold separately. So you're supporting renewable energy development, but not necessarily changing your actual electricity source.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we know, like, are these RECs legit? Is there some kind of verification process to
Yeah.
make sure?
Oh yeah, for sure. RECs are tracked and verified by these independent organizations, to make sure everything's transparent and prevent any kind of fraud. So it's important to, do your research and choose reputable REC providers. The EPA website actually has some good resources to help you do that.
That's really helpful. It sounds like RECs are a pretty powerful way to support renewable energy growth, even if you don't have access to green power options through your utility company.
They are. And for those who really want to go all in,
Yeah.
there's always the option of generating your own renewable energy, like right on site.
Okay, now we're talking like solar panels on rooftops, wind turbines in the backyard. The ultimate green power commitment. I'm picturing like a mini power plant.
Exactly. And all the advancements in technology, well, they've made these residential renewable energy systems so much more affordable and, a lot easier to get than they used to be.
It's like having your own little piece of energy independence, but I imagine it probably takes a pretty big upfront investment, right?
Well, there is an initial cost for sure. And you really have to think about, the logistics and the local regulations. But for a lot of homeowners and businesses, the long-term financial benefits and, of course, the environmental benefits, it can make it worth it. I mean, you can really reduce your reliance on the grid, maybe even eliminate your electricity bills altogether. And you know that you're generating clean energy right there at home.
Yeah, I get it. It's a real statement about your commitment to sustainability. But, I have to ask, are there downsides to even these green energy sources? I mean, nothing's perfect, is it?
You're absolutely right. I mean, every single energy source, even the ones we consider green, there are always trade-offs. For example, the manufacturing process and the disposal of solar panels and wind turbines, those do have some environmental impacts that we need to be aware of and try to minimize.
So it's about being informed and weighing the pros and cons and, just making the best choices we can based on our own situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about finding, the perfect solution. It's about always trying to make more sustainable choices.
And it sounds like the EPA is a really, really good resource to help us, figure all this out. Speaking of the EPA website, was there anything in particular that stood out to you when you were doing research for this deep dive?
One thing that really struck me was how much they emphasize consumer choice. The fact that green power is largely driven by voluntary decisions rather than mandates or regulations.
Yeah.
It really shows that people's mindsets are changing. People are becoming more aware of their energy choices, and they're actively looking for more sustainable options.
That's great to hear. It really shows that the choices we make can have a ripple effect.
And speaking of ripple effects, the EPA website also talks about the green power market itself. As more and more people demand green power, well, it sends a really clear message to energy providers and policymakers that this is what people want. and it encourages them to invest more in renewable energy sources.
So it becomes like this positive feedback loop. The more we choose green power, the more it becomes available, and the faster we move towards a cleaner energy future.
Exactly. It's a team effort, right? And each individual choice, each decision we make, it all plays a role in driving that positive change.
Well said. So we've talked about the definitions, the differences, the choices we can make, and even the limitations of green power. But I think it's time to bring it all back to the listener. What's the takeaway?
Absolutely. What do we want everyone to walk away with after this deep dive?
We've covered a lot today, but if there's one thing I really hope you take away from this whole deep dive, it's that, well, you actually have the power to make a difference. It's easy to feel like our choices don't really matter when we're talking about these big global issues like climate change, but that's just not true.
Yeah, I totally agree. Every decision we make, even if it seems small, it has an impact. And when it comes to, our energy choices, well, those impacts, they reach way beyond our own homes and communities.
So as we kind of wrap up our exploration of green power, I want to leave you with this. Knowing what you know now, how will this information change your own energy choices moving forward?
Whether it's, checking out those green power options from your electricity provider or supporting renewable energy projects through those RECs we talked about, or even thinking about, generating your own energy with like solar panels. There are things you can do, real steps you can take to align your energy use with what you believe in.
And I think it's important to remember that, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. Every kilowatt hour of clean energy we choose, it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And as more and more people make those choices, well, the momentum builds, right? We get closer and closer to that sustainable energy future.
So to everyone listening, stay curious, keep learning, and keep making those conscious choices.
The EPA website, it's a great resource if you want to learn more about, about green power and see what options are out there for you.
And hey, you never know, maybe this deep dive has, sparked something new for you. Maybe you'll become like a green energy champion in your community, or even, explore a career in the renewable energy field.
The possibilities are pretty amazing.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our green power deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been great exploring this really important topic with you.
And until next time, keep those minds curious and keep making a difference.